everyone. Well, it's late November already, and I normally make all of my soap for the end of the year by mid-October to make sure it's fully cured. But this year I decided to make one more batch, and at this late stage, the best type to make is a hot processed soap recipe. In this video, I'll share with you this lovely soap that I made. It was meant to be Christmassy looking, but it turned out more like an Irish flag, which is funny. But anyway, I'll show you how I made it, and I'll talk a bit about hot processed soap making, what you need to know about it, and I'll clear up a few misconceptions that I get asked about all the time. Hot processed soap is virtually the same as cold processed soap, but with hot processing, the soap batter is mixed to a full thick trace, and then it's heated gently to force the soap through a gel phase and full saponification in the pot before it's put into the mold. A lot of people think that you can make hot processed soap and use it straight away without any cure period. And technically, if the soap is completely cooked and the saponification reaction is complete, then yes, the soap is technically ready to use. But how soon you can use hot processed soap really depends completely on the water amount that you use in your recipe. It's a trade-off situation. You can make a really low water HP soap recipe and it will be nice and dry and hard and ready to use within a week or so. But a dry HP soap batter is also really hard to handle. It goes chunky and flaky. It's hard to do any designs with it, and it's not very appealing to make or to look at, in my opinion anyway. On the other end of the scale, there are fluid hot process soap recipes out there that use a lot more water, and these are much easier to keep smooth or to add color to and to get into the mold without that dry, crusty look. But because of their excess water, they need the same, if not longer, cure time as cold processed soap, which is like 6 weeks. So it's up to you how you approach it. When I calculate my hot process soap recipes, I leave the water amount moderately but not excessively high, usually around 2.5 to 1 or even up to 3 to 1 water to lye ratio. And that helps keep the batter nice and smooth and prevents that dry, flaky texture, but it's not exactly fluid either. It's a bit of a middle path, I guess. The other cool thing about hot processed soap is that you can really go to town on using butters or lots of saturated fats, a bit of beeswax, rice bran oil, etc., things that are known to accelerate trace. Because we're forcing the soap to pass through the trace and the gel phases in the pot, there's no need to worry about how fast or slow that happens because we're speeding it all up with heat anyway. Just remember though that if you want to use different oil or fat combinations in your soap recipe, you really do need to run that through a soap calculator. So here's what I did for this soap. I still had some palm oil in my freezer from when I did my special videos on palm oil last year. So I thought I would use some of that. I also used canola oil, coconut oil, and a bit of castor oil, which made a really nicely balanced recipe. If you don't want to use palm oil though, which I completely understand, you can substitute that with tallow or lard. My total oil amount for this recipe was 1 kilogram or 1,000 grams of oil. And to make it easier, I measured each oil into a bowl first, then added them to my little crock pot. First, I had 400 grams of palm oil, and you can see this was frozen solid. So I put that in first to get it melting. Then I added 300 grams of canola oil. Then I added 250 grams of coconut oil, just the regular type, not fractionated coconut oil. Then finally 50 grams of castor oil. This recipe has a 5% super fat and it's really nicely balanced. I put the lid on my crock pot then and I set it to high for 5 to 10 minutes or so just to help the palm oil to melt a bit faster because it was so cold. While I was waiting for the oils to melt together, I made my lye solution. I used 353 grams of water in total, which is based on a 2.5 to 1 water to lye ratio. This is a higher water amount than I generally use for cold process soap recipes. For those, I usually use about 2 to 1 water to lye, or even a bit lower, about 1.7 or 1.8 to 1. Then I've really carefully weighed out my sodium hydroxide. You need 141 grams for this recipe. And don't forget, you must always wear gloves and protective eye goggles at the very least with soap making. You need to take this stuff really seriously because it's super caustic. Always make sure you read the labels on your ingredients and make sure you understand fully what you're handling. Once the sodium hydroxide was weighed out, I carefully poured it into the water, never the other way around, and I gently stirred it until it dissolved. Then I got my essential oils ready. For this soap, I wanted to use peppermint essential oil because I think that's the easiest way to make a Christmassy kind of soap, especially for someone like me here in Brisbane, in Australia. We don't have snow and pine trees and all those cold climate Christmassy things here. You're more likely to smell mangoes, bananas, and beer here, to be honest. So I compromised and I made a nice fresh blend of peppermint, tea tree, and lavender essential oils, which is a little bit Christmassy, but in a low key, kind of Aussie appropriate kind of a way. I also prepared my mold and lined it with non-stick baking paper. I've got videos on all of these topics on this channel, so make sure you check out the links in the description box below the video. This is just one of those large, narrow bamboo drawer tidies from Kmart. If you're in Australia, these are really great. They're only $5.50 from Kmart, and I love their size for my homemade soap bars. It's just the perfect size to fit in your hand. Once I had everything ready, it was time to make the soap. Step one is to carefully pour the lye solution into the melted oils, making sure you still have your goggles on. You don't want these oils to be extremely hot, just melted is all you need. And once they're melted, turn the crock pot down to low or the keep warm setting. You can always turn it up again later if you need more heat. Once the lye solution is in with the oils, you just stir that and blend it until the soap batter reaches a nice thick trace. It only takes a minute or so. Once the soap has thickened, you can cover it up then, put the lid on, keep the heat on a very, very low setting and just let it cook. You can do other things then. You can get your colorants ready. Coloring your soap is always optional, but I wanted to add some green to this soap, so I added some French green clay mixed with a green mica that I just mixed up with a bit of water to get the lumps out, and that made a nice fresh minty green sort of a colour. I let the soap cook on low heat for a little while, and after about, I think it was about 10 minutes or so, might have been 15 minutes, I started to see it going bubbly and fluffy on the sides. When you see that, you can start to stir it. Some people don't stir their hot process soap, but I think it helps the process along, and I think it helps to cook the soap more evenly. Don't stir the soap constantly though, or too much water will evaporate out of it and it will become dry and crusty. If it looks a bit dry, you can spray some water over the top just with a water sprayer before you put the lid back on each time. That's a good trick too. After a while, your soap will start to look like fluffy mashed potatoes. Then eventually it will get less fluffy and become more glossy and translucent. Usually when you're at this stage, the soap is fully saponified or very close to it. I tested my soap to see where it was up to and found that the pH had come right down to about 9 or 8, depending on how accurate your test strips are. These are just an approximate measure, but if you're using these test strips, you want it to come down to a green color. And that means that the saponification reaction is complete and you can put the soap into the mold. Once the soap is cooked, you can turn off the heat completely and let it cool off for a bit. The next step, if you're using them, is to stir in the essential oils. And you want the soap to be well under 80 degrees Celsius or 175 Fahrenheit before you add those. Unfortunately, you can't let hot process soap cool down too much or it will start to harden on you and you'll get that chunky, uneven look, but you do want to cool it down a bit. I divided this batch into two portions so that I could add the colour to half of it. I weighed out about 750 grams of the soap, about half the total volume, and added some green colour and mixed that in. I have to say, it did take a bit of mixing to get that green in nice and evenly, but I got there in the end. Then you want to get this soap into the mold as soon as possible. As it cools, it hardens, and once it's hard, you get chunky, uneven soap. I spooned the green soap into the mold pretty quickly and I banged it down as much as I could to get out any air pockets. I also tried to smooth it out on the top to get a sort of a nice even layer, but you can play around with the design and make your soap however you like. You can leave it chunky and uneven or just one color or whatever you like to do. After the green soap was in the mold, I added all the uncolored soap to the top part and I tried my best to make it look good. I normally use a smaller recipe size for this mold, but I wanted this soap to have a bit of height and a bit of shape on the top, so I piled it up as best as I could. Then, and I'm not sure if this was a smart move or not, but I sprinkled a bit of peachy coloured mica onto the top of the soap. I'm not sure I would recommend this. It went everywhere and I ended up taking the soap outside to blow off some of the excess. It kind of looks okay and it's a bit festive, but I think in hindsight I would have preferred to leave the top plain. Once the soap is all in the mold, you can just leave it out to cool and harden, then you can cut it. But I had to go out for the evening and I knew I wouldn't want to cut soap when I got home late, so I put it into my insulated box to keep it warmer for longer, and this slows down the cooling and hardening process. Anyway, I cut the soap the next morning and it looks and it smells really good. I feel really happy and I love that there is heaps of fun and love in this soap. So I hope my friends like it. This essential oil blend is really nice. I love how fresh and minty it is, but it's also quite balanced and a bit herbal with the tea tree and lavender. It'll be a beautiful soap to use, I have no doubt. After you make this soap, it's really easy to clean up. Just add some hot water to your pot, put all of your utensils in there and let them soak for a while, then you can just clean them off. At this point, you can also test the lather of the soap and you'll find it's really nice and bubbly and creamy. It's very good. So I will cure this soap now for as long as possible before I use it or give it away. Technically, it's ready and safe to use now, but it's not hard enough for my liking and it will be much, much better after a month curing and drying. So it should be okay to give away before Christmas. Thank you for watching everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video and you can feel more confident with your hot process soap making now. All the links and information are in the description box below the video. Have a wonderful holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you who are celebrating that in the USA this week, and I will see you again soon.